Welcome to my channel. I've been asked to react to Ren's song Eden, and I'm going to do that now. But before I do that, I want to thank each and every one of you for coming to my channel. Thank you for watching my videos. Thank you for commenting on them. Thank you for liking them and for sharing them. And thank you most of all for subscribing. I really, really do appreciate it. I can't express my thankfulness enough. It's just, it amazes me. It really does. So let's take a look at Ren, and the name of this song is Eden. And you know what, before we get into that, I need to talk about something. Y'all have been asking me to react to a lot of stuff, and I really do appreciate it. But there's some things that I've been asked to react to that I'm not, or talk about, that I'm not sure I'm comfortable talking about. And one of those things is my personal life. I've had requests to talk about my wife and about our marriage and other things regarding my life, and I'm not sure I want to talk about it. I'm still thinking about that. First of all, I find it hard to believe anybody would be interested. I mean, I'm about as regular and unfamous a person as you could possibly imagine. So the idea that anyone would want to know anything about me is foreign to me. But I've been asked to do it. I'm thinking about it. I don't know if I want to or not. Until I make that decision, I'm just going to continue to go ahead with the music videos that you've asked me to react to. So, and one other thought. For those of you who have watched my one reaction to Knox Hill, and you said various things about it, like I said it was so fast I couldn't keep up. Well, yesterday I was looking around and I stumbled across, I went and looked for Knox Hill, and I realized that I've watched his reactions before. And I think he's a good reactor. And I have to tell you, yesterday I watched a reaction of him discussing, what's his name? Upchurch's diss track of Tom MacDonald. And after watching that, I thought to myself, you know what? Between him and Stevie Knight, I can't compete with that. I don't have that kind of knowledge. I can't talk about all the hidden meanings of things and the flows and all that sort of stuff. Those guys are just so much better at it than me that you should go watch them if that's what you're interested in. And the other thing that I thought about was I've been searching around looking for various other rap artists, trying to find stuff that I think might be interesting to you. And I have to tell you, my original dislike of rap as a genre continues. Now, I know that seems like a silly thing to say because I'm listening to Ren and I'm listening to Dax and I'm listening to Tom MacDonald, so I'm listening to rap. But for me, their rap is different. It has a message and it has meaning, and it's meaningful to me, and so that's the reason why I find it interesting. A lot of the rap that I come across, especially the diss tracks, I don't like it. I really don't like it. I don't understand why you feel the need to attack other rappers. I don't understand why you feel the need to talk about guns and bad names for women and crime and all that kind of stuff. I just don't get it. I don't enjoy it. I don't like watching it, so I'm not going to do that kind of stuff on my channel. And especially sexually explicit stuff I will not do on my channel. So if that's what you're looking for, you got to go look somewhere else. But anyway, I've rambled on way more than I should have. Let's watch Ren Eden.
Let me tell you a story as old as time, the story of Adam and Eve.
Well, that's an interesting voice sound.
Starts with a God who wanted more. God had just created the heavens and the earth. He had the angels by his side, but they had no will of their own, and so the autonomy to love or reject him was never theirs.
Okay. I'm going to have to disagree with Ren there. And the reason why I say that is because if you read the Bible, Lucifer certainly had a will of his own, and he exercised it, and it's what got him thrown out of heaven, along with a third of the angels. So they clearly had free will.
All but for one, the once called bringer of light, Lucifer, morning star. Lucifer was the fairest and most intelligent of all the angels. He was the closest thing to God's image, and in his likeliness, Lucifer felt restless. He began to question and doubt God. He doubted the hierarchy imposed upon him. He felt God was arrogant. In his frustration, Lucifer built a throne that stood even above God's and declared mutiny. A war ensued. God, being all-powerful, came out the victor and banished Lucifer from the heavens and exiled him to earth. Once again, God was alone with his power. Perhaps from loneliness, perhaps from curiosity, perhaps from a desire to share love, God began to work on his greatest project yet, a being that would mirror himself, the human, two humans specifically, Adam and Eve. They were placed in...
What, does anybody know how he makes that sound? That it's like, maybe it's reverb, I don't know.
...a paradise built for them on earth, the Garden of Eden. In the garden, God placed a tree that bared fruit that would grant anyone who ate it powers bestowed only to a God, to tell good from evil, left from right, to live righteously or to sin. He named this the tree of knowledge. God told Adam and Eve they could eat whatever they wanted in the garden, but never the fruit from the tree of knowledge. And if they disobeyed him, it would be punishable by death. The basic way the story of Eden is told is that Eve was tempted by Lucifer in the form of a serpent to eat a fruit from the tree of knowledge. Convinced, she bit the fruit, she passed it to Adam, and he did the same. Suddenly, ultimate knowledge filled their minds, and they realized they were naked and felt shame. God discovered this betrayal and felt angered. He exiled Adam and Eve and cursed them with the life of a mortal. They would work, they would bear children, and they would die. The fate of a human. Now look deeper.
In the story, the serpent tempted me by telling me I would gain ultimate knowledge and that God would spare me.
Both were true.
This wasn't some great deception, meaning that Satan, in the likeliness of God, perhaps understood his intentions. In fact,
the only lie uttered in the
Garden of Eden was
by God, who did not end up
condemning
Adam and Eve to death.
death.
This could be seen as an act of
Mercy.
Again, I'm sorry, but I have to disagree with Ren again. And to be honest with you, I think what Ren is doing is relating the story that's been given to him, that's been passed around for generations, and that most people understand, but that's not the truth. In Genesis, God said to Adam and Eve, "The day that thou eatest thereof, thou shalt surely die." Shalt is an absolute. In other words, in the day, the very day that you eat of the apple, you shall die. I think I've talked about this in other videos, but when Adam and Eve were created, they were created with three parts: body, soul, and spirit. And when they ate of the apple, they lost their spirit. That part of their existence died. So they did die the exact moment that they ate the apple. But they didn't die physically. They died spiritually. And from that day forward, throughout the Old Testament, if you read, if you just use a good lexicon, a thesaurus, any kind of decent Bible app on the web, and search for spirit in the Old Testament, you'll see that the word that is used, if it's translated correctly, in every single case, when it regards to spirit and man, is the Spirit was upon them. It was placed upon them, not in them, like it was with Adam and Eve. And the Spirit could be removed if they didn't do what God asked them to do. When Jesus Christ came and gave his life on the cross and then was resurrected by God, that made Spirit in you available once again. And in Ephesians, it actually says, God in Christ, in you, the hope of glory. So, yes, God did not lie in Genesis. They did die. They just didn't die physically. They died spiritually. And I'm not trying to criticize Ren. I understand Ren is probably just relating what he was taught as a child and what almost all people in the world have been taught as children. And no one's really explained it to him, but that's the truth.
But the sheer fact that the tree existed and that humans were
Were initially cut off from this knowledge.
may imply some part of God was afraid that if humans were granted the gift of perception, they, like Lucifer, would have the power to reject him too. The fact that there stood a beautiful tree that could
grant this knowledge in the first place.
implies that a small part of
God, supposedly all-knowing,
perhaps wanted and intended
the humans to bite too.
In the Bible, Satan was an exiled angel of free will. Humans are exiled
descendants of Adam and Eve.
also with free will. Not only have we shared a similar fate to the devil, we were also both constructed in
We
the
were
image of
also
our
both
Creator,
constructed in the image of our Creator.
meaning our behaviors, in some shape or form, imperfectly echo his.
We could assume that this kind of
God has his doubts,
But-
but as the most
powerful
being in the universe,
he has no one above him
to turn to with questions, and no one to
Doubt but himself, an incredibly lonely and isolating existence.
We must only assume that the common thread between God, Lucifer, and us is the desire for more, an eternal curiosity, a desire perhaps birthed from a seed of loneliness. If not, why would we exist in the first place? The constantly looping bittersweet irony is whether gifted by some omnipotent God or simply a byproduct of billions of years of evolution, here we stand in 2023 as creatures with free will, the only creatures that understand and define good from bad, creatures with the potential of a God. And what do we do with that free will, my friends? We willingly walk to the edge of a cliff. In the name of progress, we jump off the precipice. The empires we build ravage the earth. The natural order of things are necessary to survive. Any systems which do not honor homeostasis eventually perish. Our free will overrides our own biological instinct. We can take more than we eat. We can kill more than we need. We can willingly create weapons with the potential to burn everything we've built to the ground. We willingly decide to bow at the altar of greed, the most insidious and destructive of all sins. We put our faith in corporations who pose as rulers. We willingly allow ourselves to be led by outdated power systems ran by corrupted politicians
and bloated dictators who claim domain and dominion over an open and free land.
We willingly elect the corrupted when the decision was always ours to build something better. We willingly create and impose separation because of beliefs that we are force-fed through our phones and television sets. We always had the will to reject these things, but we adhere to them as though they were the laws of physics. War, famine, pestilence, greed, these aren't things imposed upon us by an all-powerful God or by his demonic adversary. They are here because of us, not because of free will, but because of our inability to use it. We must be motivated to be better, not out of fear of punishment of an eternal damnation, but because the choice exists, because we love ourselves, because we have the power to absolve ourselves of so much unnecessary suffering. Take a second to be in this very moment. In this moment, how much suffering is happening all over the planet right now? How many people are dying of illnesses that could have easily been cured, but aren't because of the selfishness and greediness of humanity? How many people break their backs and reject their own passions to simply afford bills and food? How many of us crave distraction from existence? How many of us numb that pain in whatever way necessary? How many children are being abused? How many people sleep cold and hungry on the streets? How many of us become cogs inside a machine that is destroying itself? How many soldiers have been forced to fight in meaningless wars? How many humans have killed for ideals they don't believe in or understand? How many people have died for the greed of another man? And how much of this was avoidable? As written in the Bible, Satan was not condemned to hell. Satan was condemned to earth. He lives there amongst other creatures with free will, who always had the choice and still chose their own undoing. Ladies and gentlemen, this is our self-made hell. The bittersweet irony is this is a creation of our own design. I'll leave you with this. Consider what you have done here today. You have worked together as individuals collaborating to form a giant neural network, a hive mind capable of achieving incredible things. We have lent on each other's strengths to solve puzzles and decipher riddles, and we've done so to win money. Imagine applying that same spirit and determination to creating the closest thing we have to paradise here on Earth. By using the power of collaboration, we can work together to even the playing field for everybody. Our dystopias can become utopias. Our Jahannams can become Jannah. Our hells can become heaven, right here on Earth. And this sentiment applies to atheists, agnostics, and believers alike. Myself, I'm an agnostic who believes. I believe in us. We must do better because we can choose to. We must be better simply because the option exists. Thank you.
Well, what do I say about this? He's right. We do have freedom of will, and we can do better. But others have freedom of will as well, and they choose to do worse. And so we have this dichotomy in the world between those who desire to do better and those who desire to do worse. And that source of tension in the Bible is called good versus evil. I know he says he's an agnostic. I would take his word for it. But from the standpoint of the beliefs that I have, all evil in the world can be explained by the influence of the god of this world, Satan. When people kill, when people rape, when people commit awful acts against other human beings, it's because Satan has convinced them to do so. And don't misunderstand me. I do not mean to say that Satan is talking in their ear. There's an old expression that if you get in a pigsty, you can't help but get some on you. Well, the world is Satan's pigsty. And if you're in the world, then you're going to get some on you. It's just that simple. The question is, are you going to take a bath? I know I'm speaking metaphorically, but stick with me. Those of us who decide we're going to take a bath do better. Those of us who decide we're not going to take a bath do worse. Not only to ourselves, but to those around us, to those that we love or say we love. I mean, one of the greatest ironies to me is a man who says he loves a woman and so he kills her. How does that make any sense at all? How does that, I mean, how do you put those two thoughts together in a sentence and think that they are logical, that they make any sense at all? And yet there are people that do that. I could tell you many stories about that sort of thing. Or I've experienced it in my life. I've seen people do it. And I've always thought it's insane. But insanity is what the devil brings to the world. And because he's the God of this world, this, to a certain extent, is unavoidable. The only thing you can do as an individual is to get born again and expect God to protect you, which he will do, and keep you safe from all of that. And then do your best to convince other people to do the same, and that's what I'm doing. Because for me, it's the only thing that makes any sense. Once again, Ren has produced something very thought-provoking, something that stimulates a lot of thinking and asking of questions that people sometimes don't like to ask. But they need to be asked. For all of you, my viewers, I pray that you will live abundant lives, that you will be healthy, and that you'll live a long time. And I pray that God will keep you safe from harm. And I pray that he'll do the same for every person that you love. And I also pray that you'll be anxious for nothing, but in all things, through prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, you will make your requests known to God. And the peace that passes all understanding will keep your heart and mind in Christ Jesus. This is the Vietnam Era Vet, out.